That's gonna be crazy. There's gonna be a lot of mages out there. Ele Sham. So I think the changes upcoming, you might see more Ele Shaman. You might see a little less like assassination outlaw rogues. Maybe more subtlety mage because fire and frost are getting mage. So you might see a lot of mage rogue coming out. For this patch, you probably still see some Ret Warrior Fistweaver. Over here, you might see a lot more shadow play coming out. Maybe a little less Marksman Hunter, but I still think Marksman Hunter is going to pump. I might see more people picking up BM. I've been picking up BM because these ridiculous Demon Hunters have been destroying my survival Hunter. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest changes here is really Demon Hunter is getting a nerf, a big nerf. Restoration Druid is also getting a nerf to their trees and their life plume. And you might see Marksman Hunter not just do ridiculous damage. And then you're going to see a lot of new classes upcoming, like Mage, for example, is a pretty big change in Ele Sham. So you might see some like Frost Mage, Ele Sham action going on. Hello everybody, WildJutsu here. Let's take a look at some of the changes for this next upcoming patch, November 21st, in the US NA servers. So these are the PvP changes upcoming. So let's take a look. As we know, Death Knight has been a little wild and out right now. So it looks like they are getting a Death Coil, Unholy Death Coil. Damage is now increased by 70% and PvP combat was 90%. So they're getting a nerf to Death Coil. Not sure what that means. Really, Demon Hunter is also getting a nerf. Looks like, I don't know what any of these are. Inertia damage, Elysian Decree is reduced. The Hunt initial damage, oh that's nice. The Hunt initial and periodic damage reduced by 30%. Was only 20%, so it's 10% nerf. The Hunt was ridiculous. It literally killed me a few times, just like hitting it. I was like, what? Throatglaive reduced, damage reduced. Essence Break, damage reduced. Fell Barrage, damage reduced. So Demon Hunter is getting a nerf all around. It looks like just their entire kit. Druid. Restoration Druid, Life Bloom, Healing decreased by 12% in PvP combat. Grove Guardians, which is the Treants, Nourish Healing, decreased by 15% in PvP. And the health decreased by 66% in PvP. So those trees are going to be like twigs, so hit the trees. We'll see how that goes this upcoming patch. Marksman Hunter. Alright, it looks like this is the class we play. So Hunter, Marksmanship Hunter, rapid fire damage increased by 20%. It was only increased by 40% in PvP combat. So it's still more powerful. So it's like a half of an increase. So they powered up the rapid fire and then they're reducing the power up. So it's like going from a large flask to a medium flask kind of thing. So let's see how that goes. Guardian of the Dream 4-piece set is also now causes your rapid fire damage. Causes your next rapid fire to fire 40% additional bolts. It was 60% PvP combat. So the forest set, which we didn't even know what that is, we haven't tried it out, is already getting nerfed. So they're pretty much maybe nerfing the future of Marksmanship Hunter because it might have been that OP. So the Arcane Shot damage increased by 35%. It was 25% in PvP combat. So they're increasing the damage of Arcane Shot. So they're getting a buff. Chimera Shot damage increased by 35%. It was 25% in PvP combat. So that is pretty interesting. So Chimera Shot, it'll probably be a few new builds going on with Marksmanship Hunter, so we'll see. Paladin, Holy Paladin, mana regeneration decreased by 25%, was 55% in PvP combat. So the mana regeneration, the mana regeneration now decreased by 25%, was 55% in combat. So they're just messing with Paladin mana. I'm not sure. I haven't played much Holy Paladin, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. Shadow Priest, this is interesting. Shadow increased damage of all abilities by 8% in PvP combat. Mind Trauma's duration reduced to 15 seconds, was 20 seconds. So looks like Shadow Priest is getting an 8% buff all around to every single one of their abilities. So that's Catharsis, that's Shadow Word Pain, that's every one of their abilities. Void Torrent, Tentacles. It probably goes for the Tentacles too. I mean, that's a big buff all around. So we'll see how that goes. So maybe you'll see a lot more. What is it? The Shadow Play going on, which is going to be pretty scary. Because Affliction Warlock is already feeling like wild. Mage. Blast Wave now snares by 50% for 6 seconds, was 70%. So they're reducing the effectiveness of Blast Wave for all mage specs. Arcane, Chrono Shift now increased the moving speed by 25%, was 50%. So that's a nerf to Chrono Shift. Temporal Shield now heals for 60% of the damage taken over 4 seconds. Not sure what that is, but it looks like you were at 100%, now you're at 60%. So it's a nerf to their shield. So Arcane Mages may be a little bit easier to kill. Alright, Fire. Fire is getting a buff. Wow. Ignite damage, which is the dot that any fire spell will pretty much add, increased by 20% in PvP combat. Fireball damage increased by 30%, was 12%. So that's a significant buff to Fireball, which is also a pretty big constant ability for Fire Mage. Scorch, which is your execute ability, increased by 100%, was 45%. So you might see some Fire Mage is just executing everybody at low health. Glasskin and PvP talent now increase the damage of Ignite, Fireball, Scorch by 40%, was 100%. Okay, so looks like they're increasing that, but they're reducing the effectiveness of the actual Glasskin and PvP talents to make it not so overpowered. But that is still a buff overall, so I think Fire Mage is going to be a pretty big deal. Frost Mage. Flurry damage increased by 20%, was 8%. So Frost Mage is getting a buff by Flurry, which makes their targets frozen, which also, compounds more buffs, multipliers to do more damage. So, the pre-damage is going to do more damage, basically. Frozen Orb damage increased by 75%, was only 30%. Wow. That is a big AoE, orb that just destroys everybody and all pets around. Frostbomb, PvP talent damage increased. Iceland's damage increased, was 15%. Comet Storm damage increased 40%, was 15%. Wow. That's a significant, that's a ranged ability that's like, I think it's an instant cast and sometimes could proc. Maybe that was a set before, but Freezing Winds now grants Fingers of Frost every 5 seconds, was 3 seconds. So they're changing the abilities a little bit, because I think I'm not sure what that was, but I think you got the Freezing Winds or Fingers of Frost from your orbs. So making it a little bit harder to eat your Fingers of Frost. Which it felt like it was so fast, so it's not even going to be that big of a deal, I think. I think Fire Mage and Frost Mage are going to do pretty good. I mean, Frozen Orb damage now has 5% increase to grant, 5% chance to grant Fingers of Frost. So they just don't want you to be getting massive damage. They're buffing Frozen Orb, but like reducing like the things you get from Frozen Orb. That's gonna be crazy. There's gonna be a lot of mages out there. Alright, Monk. This is your fist weaving Mistweaver. I believe it's targeted here. So Rising Sun Kick, which as a Mistweaver a fist weaver you take Rising Sun Kick. As a Mistweaver you never take Rising Sun Kick. So Rising Sun Kick for Mistweaver, damage decreased by 36%. It was only decreased by 20%. So that's a larger damage decrease for Mistweaver. So they're gonna do less damage. Dang. Wow. It's crazy because they changed the damage, but then like they really should change the healing, because like it's like punishing to do damage now. Yeah, so that's wild. So Blackout Kick, teaching the monastery, damage decreased by 25% in PvP combat. That was basically I think it was your free Blackout Kick, or your empowered Blackout Kick maybe. So it's also decreased damage. Tiger Palm decreased damage by 20%. Ancient Teachings, which is your ability to basically turn your damage into healing, now transfers 275% of the damage done, was 220%. Oh my gosh. Ancient Teachings is getting a buff. That's wild. So, that's gonna be interesting. That means they're overall, like, they're reducing the effectiveness of some abilities, like damage dealing abilities, but they're giving like your overall healing kit a buff. I mean, it does compensate. Like it is sort of like yin and yang. So we'll see how that works out for Fistweavers. I still think that Warrior, DK and all these like melee cleaves are gonna still, prefer Fistweaver. Because the extra damage I think is still gonna be significant. But our rogues, Assassination Rogue, Kingsbane, and initial period damage now reduced by 20% was 11% in PvP combat. So Kingsbane is reduced damage uh, almost by double. So they're targeting that specific ability. Outlaw Crackshot now causes between the eyes to dispatch the target for 50% was 74% of normal damage when used from stealth. So it's going to be a pretty big shot from stealth, I think. Or that's how they're already doing it. Target the damage for 50% was 7%. So, I mean, it must have been too much out of stealth. So they're targeting that specific ability. Um, Subtlety Rogue. Perforated Veins damage bonus reduced to 40% was 50%. So they were nerfing Subtlety Rogues, they're nerfing Outlaw Rogues, nerfing Assassination Rogues. Um, so even Gore's Mob Bite damage reduced by 10% in PvP combat. So Rogues are getting a slight nerf. I think they'll still be good in certain comps, but you might not see as many, new rogues coming out there, flavor of the month kind of thing, because it is the month of November. So it is Thanksgiving week. So happy Thanksgiving to any of you who celebrate that, and happy to everybody else, happy day to everybody else who will be thankful. So great. All right, Shaman. Last class targeted by these changes. So Elemental Shaman. Lightning bolt damage now deals 67%. Increased damage in PvP combat was 45%. It's elemental. So elemental's lightning bolt is getting increased damage. Chain lightning's increased damage by 15%. Ice fury increased damage by 85%. Oh my goodness. Volcanic surge now increases the damage of chain lightning and lightning bolt by 30% was 50%. So they're changing the class a little bit, but they're giving massive burst, massive increase to uses of like lightning or that certain builds. So you may not see as many like lava burst builds, but you might see more like lightning builds coming out with as well as this ice fury damage increased by 85%. So you're gonna see some ridiculous Ele Sham. So I think the changes upcoming, you might see more Ele Shaman. You might see a little less like assassination outlaw rogues. Maybe more subtlety mage because fire and frost are getting mage. So you might see a lot of mage rogue coming out. For this patch, you probably still see some ret warrior fistweaver. Over here, you might see a lot more shadow play coming out. Maybe a little less marksman hunter, but I still think marksman hunter is gonna pump. I see more people picking up BM. I've been picking up BM because these ridiculous demon hunters have been destroying my survival hunter. So yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest changes here is really demon hunters getting a nerf, a big nerf. Restoration Druid is also getting a nerf to their trees and their life plume. And you might see marksman hunter not just do ridiculous damage. And then you're going to see a lot of new classes upcoming, like Mage, for example, is a pretty big change in Ele Sham. So you might see some like Frost Mage, Ele Sham action going on. So, here's the changes for the upcoming patch 10 in 10.2, upcoming in November 21st. So these are all PvP changes. And if you like this, please subscribe to the channel to be up to date with more tips and tricks and what's happening in the PvP and Mythic Plus world. So, yeah, once again, Wild Jutsu here. Thank you for watching.